The NFL draft is today. The 2024 NFL draft kicks off tonight in Detroit, where the Chicago Bears are on the clock, and we get to see all 32 teams make a pick. So we are going to give you our final official mock draft here at All Things Football, which is going to be our predictions, right? What we think these teams are going to do on night one with the first 32 picks. Super excited. This is finally here. We can actually get to see the results of all these mocks and all these, tape and film and all the stuff that we've been doing. Excited to see how it happens. But Chase, ready to do this mock?
Yes. I'm born ready to do this.
All righty. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started here. So this is going to be a non-trade first round mock. So we'll just do all first round as is without trades. 1 through 32, obviously starting with the Detroit. Not Detroit. It's in Detroit. We're starting with the Chicago Bears. So we're going to go ahead and start. As a reminder here, no trades, just 1 through 32. And this isn't what, before you guys kill us in the comments, this isn't what we would do. This is our prediction of what we think is going to happen night one. Okay? These are strictly predictions of, things that we've seen, tendencies from these teams, GMs, things like that, what we think they're going to do on night one. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here with the Chicago Bears are on the clock. So, Chase, I don't think this is really, we don't have to spend too much time on this. I think general consensus and obviously what was going to happen is going to be USC quarterback Caleb Williams.
Yes. Yeah, I think that was the easiest number one since Trevor Lawrence, really.
All right, so now we have the Washington Commanders. Now, this one obviously is tricky because here we get to the debate. Is it going to be Jaden Daniels? Is it going to be Drake May? Obviously, the Commanders have done extensive research on both of these. What's your kind of feel? Who do you think that they're going to end up picking?
Yeah, I'm all in on the Drake May to the Commanders, right? I think it kind of came out that Jalen doesn't want to play for any, right? There's rumors that Jalen's team was putting out rumors that he doesn't want to play for anyone but the Patriots, that he was unhappy and not satisfied with his visit to Washington, right? I kind of think that there's a bridge that Jalen Daniels was kind of trying to burn down in this draft process, which leaves me with Drake May, and I think Drake May is the quarterback 2 of this draft anyway, so.
Yeah, I mean, my gut feeling is it's going to be Jaden Daniels. It just kind of seems like just so the offensive coordinator, right? Cliff Kingsbury seems to me like he would like to work more with Jaden Daniels than Drake May. It seems like he could probably get more out of the skill set with him. So it's a toss up. I mean, I'm not mad. I could agree with you to go Drake May. My initial gut feeling is Jaden Daniels for kind of those reasons. But Drake May would work as well. And so going from one North Carolina quarterback to another of the Commanders, and we'll go ahead and have him take Drake May. And so that leads obviously the New England Patriots, who are also a quarterback needy team, right? It's consistent since the consensus pretty much is going to be, whatever quarterback after 1 and 2 are left over is pretty much what the Patriots are going to get. So in this case, right, we're looking at Jaden Daniels.
Yeah. Yep, I'm with you, right? That was probably the easiest. Where'd he go?
There we go. Jaden Daniels. All righty. And so now a lot of people are saying that pick number 4 is where the draft starts, because it seems that the Arizona Cardinals are open for business and possibly trading back. We've seen it happen before. In this case, right, there's no trade, so we're going to stay put here. I think this is another pretty much general position. If the Arizona Cardinals do indeed stay here at pick number 4, I think the obvious answer here is going to be Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. Right, I would honestly think, unless the package is worthwhile, that the Cardinals should stay here for Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, unless it's something crazy, because you also have to remember the Arizona Cardinals have 2 picks in this first round, so they also have pick 27. So unless there's a scenario where they can get, another pick this round, where I have 3 first-round picks, obviously first rounders, the years to come for trading back, you might do it depending on how far back you're going to go, because you have all those picks. But even moving back, you also have the capital to move forward as well with those additional picks. So a lot of I think that the Cardinals could be definitely a team to watch as far as tradings, backwards and upwards, just because their new GM really has shown that he has a tendency to move up and down the board. But in this case, right here at pick number 4, we'll pick Marvin Harrison Jr.
Absolutely.
All right, so pick number 5 here with the LA Chargers. So Jim Harbaugh here, his first draft here with the Chargers. This could go a lot of different ways. So this is where I'm at, right? Obviously, they need wide receiver help. There's no question about it, right? They got rid of their 2 top wide receivers, in this offseason with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Got rid of their tight end as well. They don't really have anybody to catch the ball from Justin Herbert. But that's not really where Jim Harbaugh makes his money, right? Jim Harbaugh likes to have in the trenches, run type of game, 12 personnel, multiple tight ends, run the ball, and then ask the quarterback to make a couple throws a game in order to, move the sticks, score a touchdown, or whatever. So I'm torn in between having the Chargers draft a wide receiver here, like a Malik Nabers, or grabbing an offensive lineman like Joe Alt or like Talisa Fuaga, something out of effect. So that's kind of where I'm at and what I think the Chargers are going to do. I think it'll be a wide receiver or an offensive lineman.
Yeah, no, I'm right with you. I think the hang up here, I think if it was any other coach that we would be wide receiver right off the bat, because they are literally relying on Quentin Johnstein, right, who had a horrendous rookie year, and then Josh Palmer as their number 2, which would be a borderline maybe number 3, but now he's promoted to the number 2 spot. And I think that this team has a lot of decent linemen, right? They were just hurt last year. Slater got hurt. There's Rashawn Slater and Rashawn, Slatter, the one that replaced him, got hurt as well. So, if those guys are healthy, those are borderline, really good players. But is that good enough for Jim Harbaugh, right? We know his tendencies. I'm still leaning wide receiver because of the position of you need is so massive, right? I think Jim Harbaugh would be, I think the Chargers fan would be very angry, but I would not be mad if I could very well see Joe Alt also keeping Justin Herbert healthy, which, he struggled with last season.
Yeah, so man,
this is hard.
It's tough on this one. So as far as it goes, I think honestly, I feel like this would just be one of those things, like shocking things of the draft, where I don't know if it would be Joe Alt that would do it, just because they do have a left tackle. So I think it'd be more of like Talisa Fuaga, who'd be like a right tackle to come in there and pair up book and tackles to kind of build up the offense moving forward of what Jim Harbaugh wants to do. So my vote would be Talisa Fuaga here.
I'm good with it, right? Jim Harbaugh knows his guys. He's kind of had a tendency to go get his guys in the past. So let's go Fuaga.
That's the big shocking there. So now we've got the New York Giants here at pick number 6. For me here, this is where I'm at. Another team that needs more wide receiver help than anything, maybe besides the Panthers, is the New York Giants, right? They're kind of stuck with Daniel Jones, at least for 1 year. There's rumors, could they go in for a quarterback here, which obviously they could. But you also have no one to throw the ball to. So if you're not 100% set on one of these quarterbacks, in this case where the draft has fallen, Malik Nabers is right there for the taking. Get a solid wide receiver for at least the years to come. So, give Daniel Jones a guy, give him more of a chance. I like Malik Nabers here for the Giants.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I think Rome Odunze is a better receiver, but I think Malik Nabers is the pick here.
All right, now we've got the Tennessee Titans here. This is almost one of those other things that's kind of a foregone conclusion, it kind of looks like. So I think Joe Alt will be the pick here. Unless he is taken, sooner, it'll be a different tackle. But I think in this case, with how our board has fallen, I think Joe Alt here at pick number 7.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right with you.
All righty, and this is where it gets interesting. This is kind of what we've talked about here. Whereas since this is an offensive draft, right? No offensive players so far, or defensive players have been drafted. So the Atlanta Falcons are on the clock, and they could get the best defensive player that they want, right? The first pick of the litter, if you will, on defense. But then you also got guys like Rome Odunze here, Brock Bowers here. They want to get greedy. They want to add to the offense with Bijan Robinson, with Drake London, with Kyle Pitts. Or they want to do the smart and sensible thing, which is fix their defense, which has been lacking and kind of where their weakness is, Chase. So here I think, obviously defensive line, They're very low in sacks each year. The year before, they were like last in sacks. Last year, they were like 20 something in sacks. So they need to get more pressure on the quarterback. So whoever your biggest rusher is going to be here, I think is they're going to take here. I think kind of the consensus is probably Dallas Turner here at pick number 8 for the Falcons.
Yeah, no, I agree completely, right? They kind of went out in the offseason, right, and paid Darnell Mooney $18 million to come be their number 2, traded their backup quarterback that they drafted 2 years ago, Desmond Ritter, to get Rondell Moore to be their number 3 receiver, right? They have Drake London, they have Kyle Pitts, they've got Bijan. I think they're done touching that offense for a little bit. I think this has to be defense. I think Dallas Turner is the consensus edge one in this class.
Okay. All right, now the Chicago Bears are back on the clock. This is their original pick after using pick number 1 on their franchise quarterback. What are your thoughts here of what they do here with their second pick?
Yeah, this is crazy because their dream came true with Rome Odunze still there, right? This was the offseason dream is Rome Odunze, Caleb Williams, right? But when they brought in Keenan Allen, that 4th round pick, do you need Rome Odunze? You need 3 star receivers because of course you have DJ Moore there, right? You go out and get a lineman to beef up that line. They already have, they kind of did that last year, right? Their defense could use some upgrades. There's a lot of great positions. I'm still rocking with Rome Odunze. I don't know how much Keenan Allen's got in the tank left, right? We've seen him be injured, 4 of the last 5 seasons, missed significant time. I think they still pick a wide receiver that they could pair with their rookie quarterback and be generational changing, franchise changing duo.
Yeah, so I mean, the Keenan Allen, I kind of look at it more as like a 1 year rental, if you will. They just traded a 4th round for him, right, to come over essentially just for a year. We'll see what happens afterwards. But you're right. I mean, he's oft injured. Last year he was able to play the full season, but not a whole lot of guarantee. He's on the latter end of his career for sure. You can go and you can bring a guy that's his career's just beginning, a stud like Rome Odunze. You can have that pairing of Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze for years to come and be potentially one of the best duos in the league for years to come. So I think that's a great pick, wide receiver. I can honestly see the Bears doing 3 things here, which I think would be that nobody would have a problem with. Obviously, the receiver. They can also go offensive lineman here. This is the offensive. They can go like Fashanu here. They could go, another offensive tackle here just to shore up the offensive line, make sure Caleb Williams is stays upright, or they can go defense, right? Go defense of the ball. But I'm with you. I don't think Rome Odunze makes it out of the top 10, right? No matter what happens, I don't think he makes it out of the top 10. And so for him to fall here to the Bears like this, I feel like you can't get greedy here and give your QB1 a new potential. Honestly, I believe a wide receiver one eventually.
Yeah, no, I'm right with you.
And now the New York Jets are on the clock. Now there's a big debate on what we think they're going to do and what they should do. Obviously, I think what they should do is protect Aaron Rodgers, right? They've got 2 old veteran tackles, right, to come back there to pick him up or to block for him off injury. Like if they go down, what happens? Honestly, with the way the draft board is here, Chase, I think there's to me, if this is how it falls, I don't have the confidence in the Jets to do the sensible thing. I think they think they don't think with their head. They think with the other thing, and that other thing is going to show them to take Brock Bowers here for the Jets to give Aaron Rodgers even more ammunition. I think they're all in on Aaron Rodgers. They've shown they're all in on Aaron Rodgers because they didn't do anything last year when he was hurt to bring in any other quarterback at all. I don't know if that's because they were scared maybe that he would be better than Aaron Rodgers. He would lead to success. They'd be in some sort of pickle. Whatever it was, they show that they're all in Aaron Rodgers for better or for worse. And so at this point, I think Brock Bowers here at number 10, giving Aaron Rodgers another weapon, right? Garrett Wilson, Brock Bowers, Breece Hall, just giving them no excuses to go out there and be successful. So that's kind of where I'm at here with the Jets.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. If I was the Jets, I would take Fashunuan from Penn State right away, right? Protect Aaron Rodgers. That's my number 1 priority. Should be any team's number 1 priority to protect their quarterback. The Jets, though, they tend not to focus on the priorities and focus on the playthings. And Brock Bowers would be a beautiful plaything for Aaron Rodgers in that offense, right? He'd be able to do things that we haven't really seen Aaron Rodgers work with an elite tight end like that ever in his career. So it'd be really nice if Aaron Rodgers stay healthy.
All right. So now we've got the first pick here of the Minnesota Vikings. So another team that has 2 first-round picks. So What are we thinking here about the Vikings here at pick number 11? I know the consensus is most likely they're going to trade up to try to get a quarterback. In this case, so far at our mock of what we believe, that hasn't necessarily had to happen yet. They could still have a quarterback of their choosing, which most likely they would get by trading up anyway without having to trade up. But what are your thoughts here of the Minnesota Vikings here at 11?
Yeah, I think if the Vikings somehow stay at 11, right, and this falls, this is right in their favor. I believe that they are going quarterback, and if they want a quarterback, they kind of have to pick him here, right? If they pass on quarterback, there's going to be a run on them coming up next, right, with the Broncos and the Raiders both really needing a quarterback. So I think J.J. McCarthy would be the guy. I think he is the highest touted quarterback left. He's got, some growing pains, but I think he's the one that can run an offense the best with the potential to move to move up into the franchise changing or franchise leading quarterback status.
Yeah, I'm not as high on JJ McCarthy as a lot of people are. I don't think he will ever be in that upper echelon tier of quarterbacks. I think whoever is going to go to the Minnesota Vikings will be successful um, due to the nature of the offense, right? Kevin O'Connell is a great offensive coach, a great head coach. And obviously, you've got Justin Jefferson, you've got TJ Hawkinson, you've got Jordan Addison. Like that team on offensive side of the ball is set up for success. So any team, any quarterback that's going to get there, I think will have success. Am I talking Super Bowls? I'm not going to go there, but be successful, right? Kirk Cousins was successful there, but never amounted to anything, right? I think JJ McCarthy would yield similar results, if not the exact same results of what we saw with the Kirk Cousins era in there. I think they're very similar, and I don't think JJ McCarthy has that it factor to take him. Honestly, if we're talking about the quarterbacks that are less, my preferred quarterback of who's left personally is Michael Penix Jr. I think he's going to be the guy that you'd want to throw the ball at Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, just because he's the best thrower of the ball. But this isn't what I'm doing. This is what the Vikings are going to do. And so in this case, I would agree. I think the Vikings at this point, they don't have to trade up anything. JJ McCarthy falls to their lap, right? If they don't take him here now, they're not going to get him at pick number 23 without having to at least trade up a bit. So in this case, they get the guy that we all assume that they want in JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now the Denver Broncos here are on the clock. Another team that's very needed at quarterback. So they just recently traded for Zach Wilson, but when you're looking at their quarterback room, it reads more of a UFL team than it does an NFL team. So I don't think that trading for Zach Wilson deters Sean Payton from going in and drafting his own quarterback right of the future. Right, he inherited Russell Wilson. That was not his guy. It was a lot of people are going to say this just because how Patrick Mahomes came out, but Sean Payton has said that he was wanting when he was at the Saints to draft Patrick Mahomes. I don't really know if that's true or not, but he's going to want to go in and get his guy, and I don't think he's going to pass on a guy again. So in my case, I think this would be quarterback Bo Nix here for the Broncos.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right with you. I think Bo Nix, I was really high on him in college. I think he was my Heisman vote. But I think he pans out a lot like Derek Carr instead of Drew Brees. But a lot of people are gonna make that Drew Brees comparison to how he can run an offense and how accurate he is with the football, putting the ball in, not the strongest arm, but accurate, right? And that's what Sean Payton looks for in a quarterback, right? He's not dialing up deep shots every once, but he wants to methodically march the ball down the field with accurate passes. And Bo Nix is capable of doing that. I don't know who he's going to do it with in that Broncos team because they got rid of Jerry Jeudy. They're looking to trade Courtland Sutton. The rumors say so. Who knows what he's going to have to work with? But I think Bo Nix is the pick here on Thursday.
I agree, and Bo Nix as well is something he just does so good. He's like a point guard, right?
Yes.
He's getting the ball there. When you saw him at Oregon, he had some throws and stuff, but most of his yards and touchdowns were a ton of yak yards. He would get the ball to his receivers, and they would just run and score touchdowns and pick up yards. So he's definitely a guy that obviously can win you some games. He's a talented player, but most of the time is you just have him. He's going to get the ball in the hands of the receivers and have his players make plays.
Yeah. He's not going to change the game too much, but he's not going to make up mistakes, right? Bo Nix is not going to turn the ball over, right? He's going to get the ball to who needs it to be, right? It's got a very interesting career path there in the NFL if that pans out.
Absolutely. And now the Las Vegas Raiders are here back on the clock. So I'm really on the fence of what I think of what Vegas is going to do here with their pick because they need a quarterback as well. Who they're walking with Gardner Minshew, they're walking with Aiden O'Connell. Are those really franchise guys? They just have a new head coach. You want to go in there and do it. They also need talent elsewhere, right? I mean, their offensive line isn't very good at all, so they could beef up the offensive line. Obviously, there's a lot of different things to go. So I'm kind of on the fence between quarterback or offensive line here. As far as what I think they're going to do is, I think it's more tending towards an offensive lineman here. But just what do you think?
Yeah, I'm more on the defensive side of the ball, right? They hired a
Oh,
defensive head coach in Adrian and Antonio Pierce. He wants to run the defense through linebackers. He wants the cornerbacks to press. They don't have any cornerbacks worth a hoot, right? Their cornerbacks are very, very bad. Nate Hobbs is not awful, right? I think he's an Illinois guy or Indiana guy, but I'm sorry, Nate Hobbs, Nebraska guy, but he's a slot cornerback. I think Terran Arnold would be a good pick there. They could press him. You could press him. They could be locked down the number ones. They're going to need a lot of cornerback help going against in that division with potentially Bo Nix, already Pat Mahomes and help me out, like Herbert in that. I think cornerbacks the move to beef up a very, very poor off defense that the head coach is now defensively thinking minded. Defensively thinking
I mean,
minded.
yeah. I mean, they could go. They could go. Defense as well. Just typically with, I know they have a new, the new everything. Because typically with them is they don't really draft defense in the first round. I can't remember the last time or except last year when they drafted the guy out of Texas Tech who didn't play at all. So,
Yeah,
they want to go that way. It's tough, but I wouldn't mind going cornerback here. So if they are going to go cornerback, at least they do. Who's the cornerback here that they draft?
yeah, I think Terrell Arnold is the cornerback that I would see them picking, right? I think Antonio Pierce is, they got a new everything, right? I think they just go with the most surefire, right? I think Quinion Mitchell is a little bit scarier playing in a small school, right? If it doesn't pan out, right? And Terran Arnold's right there playing in Alabama, kind of improved his draft stock. I think he's the safer of the two picks, and I think after the history that the Raiders have had drafting, I think they go with the safe pick, which is Arnold.
Arnold. All right, I like it. All right, now the New Orleans Saints here are on the clock. Now the Saints, another team that is just kind of very mid. They're just kind of average on both sides of the ball. So there's a lot of different ways that they can go. They've got a super old defense. They got a super old offense as well. Just a very old team. So a lot of different things to go here. I don't think they drafted Derek Carr's successor here. I'm more inclined to think that they're going to get offensive lineman here. I think offensive lineman is for the pick here for the Saints for the first round. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think it's a very specific offensive line. I think that, I'm looking at more like Jackson Powers Johnson, right? They've drafted a center 3 years, or not the prior 3 years, but three out of the past 7 years in the first round, right? With Eric McCoy and Cesar Ruiz coming up, right? Neither one of them have panned out. They've moved them to guards, right? They really like the to get the middle of the field thing. And I hate to say it, the Saints draft dumb players, right? They just draft, they're so close, they draft their player, they draft the position of need, just the wrong player. So I think offensive line should be after the mishandling of Trevor Penix, but I think they go center for some reason. That's just what the Saints would do in my head.
I mean, yeah. I mean, when they drafted Cesar Ruiz, I was floored. I was like, "What?" So, yeah. So Saints do Saints like things. So I could definitely see a shocking thing like that. Offensive line, but a weird offensive line pick. Yeah. So I'm not mad about that.
Okay.
All righty, the Indianapolis Colts here. I think the Indianapolis Colts here. I think it's safe to say the Colts. The safest bet would be a corner here.
Yes.
I don't know about you, but they wide receivers in need, but they just locked Michael Pittman Jr. So I don't know if they would go in here around one. But when you look at how that team looks, beefing up their defensive backs there, I think is a big need here for the Colts. So at this point, I think Quinyon Mitchell here is going to be the pick for the Colts.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of like Joey Porter Jr. was for the Saints or for the Steelers last year. I see Quinion Mitchell in the Colts jersey already. I don't know why, but he's just the player that just stands out to me as the Colts number one want. So I'm with you 100%.
All righty, now we're back here with the Seattle Seahawks at pick number 16. New head coach Mike Macdonald, defensive coach coming over from the Ravens. To me, I think he's going to want to install his mentality, defensive mentality here of going after beefing up the defense side of the ball. So I think that the pick is going to be Laiatu Latu here out of UCLA. That Latu will stay in the West Coast, just up a little bit north in Seattle, be a stalwart position there for Mike Macdonald.
Yeah, no, I could see that. I was between Byron Murphy and Liatu Latu. I like Liatu Latu a lot, right? I think they go defense, and they need an edge rusher, and I think he's a heck of an edge rusher. So I'm with you 100%.
All right, this brings up the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, Jacksonville Jaguars, I think, are another team that defensive back is probably what I think that they should go after. Offensive line is another concern as well. I'm kind of torn here between the two, the way the draft board has fallen. Chase, what are your kind of thoughts here? What are you feeling? What do you think the Jags are going to do?
Yeah, like if I was the Jacksonville Jaguars, I would go after edge because my past edge rushers have not worked out in the past 5 years. I've drafted Kason Chason and Trayvon Walker. Trayvon Walker still has the potential to work out. Chason is out of the league now, but I could see them going defensive back as well, right? Tyson Campbell was decent for him last year. Andre Cisco as the safety is a stud. Other than that, they don't really have anything. I'd be surprised if this is an offensive pick, though. I think this is definitely defense, especially with the way this board's kind of fallen down.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I'm thinking here probably Nate Wiggins. I think would be the pick for the Jaguars. I just think a speedy guy. When you look at the teams in their division, right? You look at what the Houston Texans have done on offense. You look at what the Titans are doing on offense. Even the Colts are doing on offense. Right, that to have a good coverage corner, a speedy corner there to cover those guys, I think is super important. So that's kind of where I'm going. I think Nate Wiggins would be the pick here.
Yep, I'm okay with that.
Now the Cincinnati Bengals. Chase, talk me through here. What do you think? What do you think the Bengals are going to do?
Yeah, so this is wild. I had it. I mean, I was almost certain that it would be an offensive tackle here, right? That's been their biggest need since Joe Burrows came into the league. With the news of Trey Henderson leaving, right? DJ Reader left in this offseason. I could also see, Byron Murphy's still on the board here, and I think Byron Murphy is a heck of a player from Texas. So I'm in between the Penn State Penn State offensive lineman Fez Schumann or Byron Murphy, right? To kind of fill up that spot that DJ Reader left.
Yeah, I think filling up that spot with DJ Reader is of the utmost important. I think that is going to be. I saw this stat. I'm trying to find it here right now. Basically, of the contribution that DJ Reader had when he was on the field versus when he was off. I found it. So the Bengals were the NFL's number one run D versus running backs with DJ Reader on the field the last 2 years. With him off the field, they were dead last. How insane is that? That one player makes literally that big of a difference from number 1 to number 32. So getting a DJ Reader replacement in there, I think is even more important than drafting a tackle, just due to the nature of this draft. Right, they can get a tackle, later, but getting a guy here to do that here. So whether it's Murphy or Newton, take your pick, but getting a guy, a run stopper in there to take the place of DJ Reader due to that stat alone, I think is definitely something that the Bengals would consider overdrafting a tackle. As we've seen, they pretty much take any position over a tackle. They just refuse to do it.
Yeah.
So, whether that's going to be Newton or Murphy, I think Murphy is the better player in my opinion. So I would pick Byron Murphy in this case. And so with the way this has fallen, I think that they would pick Byron Murphy as well.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. But I think both of them are first round worthy, right? I really like Newton a lot coming out of Illinois, but Byron Murphy is just different. He's faster, he's stronger than everyone. I mean, he's just an animal.
All right, now we've got the LA Rams are on the clock here. So the LA Rams could do a number of different things. It's weird because we don't have really a good history of this regime drafting the first round because they haven't had a pick in 7 years. Ever since they drafted Jared Goff, they haven't had a first round pick. And so here they have a first round pick. So to measure kind of what their tendencies are, what they like to do, what they don't like to do, it is pretty much impossible because we haven't really seen it here with this current regime with Sean McVay and Les Snead here. What are your thoughts here? What are your vibe here? What do you think the Rams are going to do with this first round pick that they haven't had in almost a decade?
Yeah, so I think the biggest need for them, and I know they had that stellar rookie that I can't remember the name of, but Aaron Donald just retired, right? He was a force to be reckoned with, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. I think he is the biggest need, right? He was their defense, right? So I looking here, Byron Murphy, I think that's who they want. They just left, right? But Jazon Newton's not a consolation prize. The other thing is Troy Fontaine from uh, Washington. He's still there. He's falling. I don't know if they can pass up. Right. This is kind of how we talked. Is the best player available or the biggest need? Right. And so I'm just, it's crazy how some of these tackles are slipping in our mock here. But
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that the tendency is going to be to go that defensive player, get Newton there, replace that. But I think they like what they saw with their defensive player, and I think they went in and drafted him because they had an idea that, listen, Aaron Donald's going to retire sooner rather than later, so they wanted to go ahead and get into it. And he was successful. He was good, and so I think that they're comfortable with that. I think Fatano. I think the slide has to stop here. The fact that both these
yeah,
these tackles are still here. It was pretty crazy. So I think Fatano here would be the pick, especially if this is how it falls. I think that the Rams don't make the mistake and don't pass this up.
yeah, I'm with you.
All right, this brings us now to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Chase, what are your vibes here for Pittsburgh?
Yeah, Pittsburgh's got a whole new kind of philosophy, right? They brought in these two quarterbacks, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, kind of changing it up. They've made some trades, got rid of a wide receiver. Now they're stuck with just George Pickens as their known wide receivers, right? But their defense is still strong, right? Staying in there. I think this pick is attributed to these slides too. I think it's one of these tackles, either Latham or Fashino from Penn State, right? These guys, I don't think they're the original pick of these guys, but I don't think that they can let them slide past them.
Yep, I agree. I think a tackle will be here for sure. Obviously, depending on how the actual draft goes, but in this case, Fashano here, I think will be that pick.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, the Miami Dolphins. Now, the Miami Dolphins have been somewhat of a weird team because they feel like they're just there, but they can't figure out what it is to get over the hump. And last season, it was a riddled, crippled defense, just injury. Jalen Phillips went down, Chubb went down, Ramsey was down early. Just their defense was just riddled with injuries. Tough to come back from. So in this time of focus, I think that defense is probably going to be of their most importance going into this draft. Obviously, to get better, especially adding depth if they really wanted to make a push in the playoffs and a possible championship run, you got to have depth to cover those injuries. And so I think defensive side of the ball is what their focus is going to be.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. And as much as I'd like to put Jared Verse because he's my favorite defensive player that's not Cooper DeJean in this draft, I think it's Jazon Newton. They just lost their stud defensive tackle in Wilkins. He went to the the Raiders. I think being able to plug him back in, because you got to think Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips will be back, whether it's late this year or next year, right? Jalen Phillips kind of pulled his stuff a little later in the year, but they will be back. So I couldn't see them wasting a pick for like a year rental with Jared. Not wasting. Jared Verse would play anyway, but they could plug him in potentially with a full lineup and have their first round pick playing with them. I would be surprised if they pass Newton.
I like that a lot. All right, now to the Philadelphia Eagles. So I don't think their needs. This is kind of weird that it shows a wide receiver to me. They got AJ Brown. They just locked up Devontae Smith. So maybe they just haven't updated this yet. But I think wide receiver is definitely not on their list of things that they need.
No.
A defensive back for me.
Yes.
Their secondary is old. It's terrible. It's been one of their biggest Achilles heels for the past 3 seasons at least. Got to get better on the defensive side of the ball. To me, Kool-Aid McKinstry just feels kind of like a Philadelphia Eagle here. I don't know kind of what you're feeling like, but to me, I just think Kool-Aid here just kind of really gives off a Philly vibe.
Yeah, I could see that. For some reason, I'm just thinking that Cooper DeJean fits their scheme a lot, right? They like to draft the player, like they used they brought him back, the guy that punches people. Why can't I think of his name? CJ Gardner-Johnson, right? They brought him back. Cooper DeJean could fill that role, kind of like what what our safety last year in the draft, I can't think of his name, went to the Lions. Brian Branch, kind of like what he does now. He could play nickel corner. He could play nickel cornerback. He could play deep safety, right? Cooper DeJean could do that, but I agree that Kool-Aid McKenzie just has that Philadelphia aura about him.
All right, and the Minnesota Vikings are back on the clock here at pick 23. So they've got their quarterback of the future, and now what do they do?
Yeah, I think it's Jared Verse, the defensive end, right? They just let go of Daniil Hunter. I know they brought in that pass rusher that had the good season at Houston, but I don't think they could pass, right? If they do potentially draft 2 picks, which I don't see happening, but we're not getting into the trades. That would be too much. So Jared Verse is a heck of a steal this late in the draft for him.
I like it. All righty, the Dallas Cowboys here are on the clock. Now, my idea here, I think, for the Cowboys isn't going to be a sexy Dallas Cowboy pick, but it's going to be one of these tackles here that's on the board. They had the best offensive line in the NFL for a very, very long time, and just due to just aging, right, and they're playing a tough position, right, they've kind of floated away. It's not as strong as it once was. And so, in my mind, I think that they've got the players where they need them for the most part to be successful. Now it's just shoring up the offensive line, make sure Dak stays upright, and so grabbing one of these tackles here with J.C. Latham or Marius Mims, kind of take your pick. But I think at this point it would be an offensive tackle.
Yeah, I think so too. Something in the back of my head though says Xavier Worthy. Right. Dallas is just the team to buy into that speedy receiver already from Texas, right? They let Michael Gallup walk. They don't really have that true number 2 receiver. Right? I know Brandon Cooks is gone as well. So, they don't have that guy there. So I agree that it should be a tackle, but I think Xavier Worthy, if something were to be shocking, I wouldn't be, you know, up, up a wall about Xavier Worthy.
So we want to go Latham or Mims?
I man, I think it'd be Latham. I think Mims,
Latham.
yeah, I think Mims, based on the size that they normally pick and the way that they draft their tackles, I think Mims just doesn't fit that, right? There's a certain team that likes that massive tackle, and they're not one of them.
And Mims will be a Green Bay Packer. The
No,
Green Bay
too big
Packer
for us.
here are on the clock. What do you, as our Packers fan, Chase? What do you think they're not what you hope they're gonna do? But what do you think Bute's gonna
Yes,
do?
yes. This based on how this board fell, right? This is not looking to what the Packers are thinking. For some reason, I just have a feeling that Jerzon Newton could be a Packer. On Thursday night. I think he might, if he falls, he doesn't here. I think the pick is probably Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma, right? As much as I like Cooper DeJean, that's who I want. I think he'd probably be in consideration. But I think the number one thing, this defense, we've got a lot of talent already invested in our defense. We got to protect Jordan Love. We've seen a couple games last year where he struggled because he wasn't given time. I think Tyler Guyton kind of falls in, maybe it's a little bit of a stretch, but he falls into the size and the productivity, the athleticism scores that the Green Bay Packers normally draft at. So that's who I'm going with for the Packers pick.
Yeah, listen, I think offensive line is the get there. Obviously, it's going to be tempting. Want to have a guy like Cooper DeJean for sure, but offensive line for sure. I mean, it's something that they've just refused to do because of the hope of Bakhtiari. It's kind of, I don't want to say set them back, but it's an issue that needs to be resolved
Yeah.
or solved, and they can do that here with the very good class of tackles. So now we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the clock here. Where I think in here, so for me, I'm thinking defense. I think they've got for the most part offense locked up with who they like. Obviously signed Baker. Obviously signed Mike Evans. They still got Chris Godwin. Offense is fine. Sure up on the defense of the ball. They've lost some players on defense. But to me, I think this is a Chop Robinson type of team. I think Chop Robinson goes to the Buccaneers. I think that's the best fit for him, and I think it's something that the Buccaneers pull the trigger on.
Yeah, I can see that as well. Also, I can see the Buccaneers tend to like to draft middle linebackers, right? They just let Devin White walk. Devontae David's at the end. Peyton Wilson will be there, but I could see Chop Robinson as well. I think it's between one of those two guys would be my bet. I'm okay with going Chop though.
All righty, and the Arizona Cardinals are back on the clock with their second pick here in the first round. So we got them taking Marvin Harrison Jr. at pick number 4. So now they have really, at this point, you could say, argue, best player available or things like that. At this point, I think something that they're going to look at is probably, especially with how strong this class is offensive line to be able to go ahead and basically shore up the offensive line. And so to me, I'm thinking they're looking at a guy that's a little bit a jack of all trades here. I think Graham Barton would
Yep.
be a really solid pick here, especially how the board has fallen.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. I think Graham Barton's more of an interior guy than he is tackle, and he's listed as tackle there. But that I could see them going there. I could also see the Mims, right? They let DJ Humphries walk this, or did they? Yeah, I think they let DJ Humphries walk. So they, I could see Mims, but I wouldn't be mad with Barton. And I think Barton, they can move him if he doesn't work for tackle. He's all, kind of like what the Peter Shronsky thing was, right? Try him at tackle. If he doesn't work, you got yourself a left guard, like the Zach Martin, right? I could see them picking Barton and doing the same thing.
Alrighty, now the Buffalo Bills here on the clock. So another team that's really had a real upheaval of their team. Really has been the Buffalo Bills on both sides of the ball. They've lost a lot of players on defense and their two biggest wide receivers on offense, right? Stephon Diggs traded to the Texans, Gabe Davis signed to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So really short staffed, if you will, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So to me, this is something that I've kind of been talking about for a long time. I think I was going to be a wide receiver. And for me, I think you get a big body receiver. I think AD Mitchell here would be the pick here for the Bills.
Oh, I was thinking the other big body wide receiver in Brian Thompson Jr., but I'm not mad at either one. I like AD Mitchell a little bit more anyway. So
Okay. Yeah, I think, I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. is a stud as well, but I think if AD Mitchell's on the board and you have a choice between the two, I think almost every team would take AD Mitchell over
yeah,
Brian Thomas Jr.
yeah.
All right, the Detroit Lions. So now Detroit has obviously been shorted up. They signed or they extend Amon-Ra St. Brown. They extend Penei Sewell. So they're shoring up their star players here. Really had a magnificent draft last year. Sam Laporta. They got the running back Jahmyr Gibbs. A ton of talent there, and Aiden Hutchinson as of late. So they've been really on fire with their draft picks. So I expected to nail this pick here based on how the board has fallen, Chase. What are your thoughts on where they go?
Yeah, I think it's cornerback. That's their main need. I can honestly see them pulling a safety too, right? Even though there's not really a safety that they're in love with this position. We've seen kind of the last couple of years that they don't care about positional draft needs, right? They just go out and get what they need and they get their best guy. So I think either Ennis Rakestraw or honestly, I really like Jaden Hicks from Washington State, the safety. I think he would be, he's who I'm eyeing for the Packers second round. I could see them flipping in and getting him here, but I think cornerback would be the bigger need.
So at this point in this question, so Cooper DeJean is falling and getting closer to fall out of here
I didn't even.
of the first round. Cooper DeJean is
Yes,
still on the board. So do you want to
you know what?
re?
Yeah, I could see they could put Cooper DeJean at safety. I was just thinking the way Cooper DeJean played at Iowa, you couldn't have that play with Brian Branch because that's kind of where Cooper DeJean kind of played at Iowa. But if you just flipped Cooper DeJean to a full-on safety, which they could do in the NFL, he would fit right in that line secondary. So I didn't even think of that, right? Or just make him your outside guy. He could do that, but Cooper DeJean's versatility doesn't work with them because they already got a guy that's already versatile like that.
I like it.
But
That's a good reason why not to.
but if I believe Cooper DeJean is the number one cornerback in this draft, so if they're under that belief and they pick a lot of Hawkeyes, right? We've seen Jack Campbell go there just last round, so I would not be surprised if Cooper DeJean there. But I guess I was small minded on the fact that I wanted to use Cooper DeJean for a team that could use him for his versatility, but maybe
No,
they
I
just
think
want
that's
him.
I think that's a great point. I think that's a great point. Absolutely, it's a reason why they might pass up on him. So, Ennis Rakestraw Jr., you said.
Yeah, I just think he's the potential to be the number one, right? With that can lock down a number one wide receiver with his length and his speed.
I like it. All right, so now the Baltimore Ravens, runner up in the AFC. What are your thoughts here for the Ravens?
Yeah, I think this is the Ravens kind of wild. I'm not sure. I could see a cornerback. I could see tackle. I could see edge, right? And anything. I don't know. I don't know where that they would need to upgrade at. Right. I don't know what would put them over the hump here.
I mean, it's tough with the Ravens. I think they could go a variety of different ways. I think before I was thinking it was going to be wide receiver, but they've kind of done things to receiver, like they've re-signed, Rashad Bateman. They just drafted, Flowers last year, so I don't know if they go receiver. Tackles are still here on the board, like Amarius Mims is still here. They could beef up protection there, in need of offensive line help. So obviously, go bet on defense as well. Uh, we got to think of what they're going to do. In my mind, though, I think with how this has fallen, I think Amarius Mims here is probably the pick.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Or I could see them reaching for Brandon First, that defensive tackle, right? Just everyone likes a defensive tackle, but I think Mims is the better select.
And that brings up the San Francisco 49ers. Chase, what are your thoughts here on last year's NFC champ?
Yeah, I think this stops my slide of my boy DeJean, right? They could use him for the versatility. They can use him as a safety. They can use him in that cash position, right? I think this would be a dream come true for the 49ers. And they like to draft Hawkeyes anyway. So
That they do. Yeah, no, I think defense. When you look at kind of what they need, sure they could go offensive line. You saw the Chiefs get some pressure on them. They want to beef that up a little bit to kind of put that. But I think really also if you look at it on the other side, like if they just made one or two plays more on the defense side of the ball, then they win the Super Bowl, right? So kind of you pick and choose where you want to go. But shoring up the defense there against even in the NFC, right? I mean, there's studs in the NFC that you need help covering as well. But just looking at that, I think getting a stud corner is definitely the way to go for the 49ers. I wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers did go offensive line here, but I think it'd be one of the two for sure.
yeah, absolutely. And I think if DeJean wasn't on the board, I would have said offensive line. But I'd be amazed if they passed on DeJean.
All right, and that leads us to the final pick of the draft, which is the Super Bowl champs, your Kansas City Chiefs. What are your thoughts here on kind of what the Super Bowl champs are going to be looking at?
Yeah, I think it's either Brian Thompson Jr., right, a wide receiver, a big body wide receiver. I've said this all podcast long. I want to see Pat Mahomes with someone that can go up and get the ball, right? Kansas City has not really given him that in the form of a wide receiver, right? Travis Kelce is great at doing it, but they don't. They've relied on more gadget speed plays, which have worked out pretty well for them, I would say. But I'd love to see a true jump ball wide receiver, or kind of off of left field, but they've got your pick of whichever linebacker, right? We don't have a linebacker. They Nick Bolton was there. You signed back the white kid from Notre Dame, Drew Tranquill, but you did leave Willie Gay walk. He was a kind of a big part of some of those Super Bowl runs in the past. So I could see that being a position that they take a look at having their cream of the crop.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I don't think it's any question to know that the two biggest needs are probably obviously 1A is wide receiver, and the 1B I think is offensive line. Obviously, we know the wide receiver situation, but they have made some moves to do that. Obviously, they signed Hollywood Brown. Obviously, with the off-field issues with the Rashee Rice, it's looking like he is going to miss some time. Will it be an extensive period of time? If it's just a couple of games, like can they work around with just a couple of games? I'm sure they can. If it's a 2 to 4 game suspension, if it's longer than that, who knows? So that might put a little bit more pressure. But let's be honest, Brett Veach, the Chiefs, they don't draft wide receivers in the first round. Okay, to be honest, I'm not going to be holding my breath that a wide receiver is going to be the option, even when we get some of these studs that happen to fall here, right? Like Bryce Hummer Jr. It just is not really in the nature. When we look at the past 2 rounds, it's been day 2 picks, right? Sky Moore, it's been Rashee Rice. It's even been later picks, right? Tyreek Hill in the 5th round. Like they just don't spend a first rounder on wide receivers, and quite frankly, I don't think they need to. Right? We've seen what this can do when we have our defense playing like that, right? We have Mahomes right in the offense doing it. We don't need that legitimate, wide receiver, right? He can make do. Obviously, Rashee Rice will be back eventually, right? Depending on what this bench is. Hollywood Brown will fill in. Obviously, still Travis Kelce. Kadarius Toney is still on the team. We'll see what happens there. Sky Moore is still there, right? So I mean, they still got players there that they go into through with. So in my mind, I think the one thing that Brett Veach will never let happen again, ever, is to not have an offensive line that can protect Patrick Mahomes. I don't believe that he'll ever do. If there's even a slight thing of that happening, dude, I think, honest to God, I think that this will be an offensive tackle. We will be drafting a left tackle here at first at 1. At this point, with how the draft has fallen, I think it'll be Jordan Morgan, the tackle out of Arizona.
Yeah, I like Morgan a lot, so I could see that, and I agree with you. Right, Brett Veach wants to protect Mahomes.
I mean, we're looking at here. I mean, killer run. I mean, we look at this, right? He keeps the quarterback clean, right? In his 3 years here, he's only gotten better, right? Went from 7 to 2 to 1. Sacks, obviously only 1, only 2. So he's good at being a left tackle,
Yeah.
right? He's good at keeping there. So the fact that that's just the tendency, I think, of the Chiefs not to go wide receiver, I know that's kind of what the popular thing is going to be. I know probably what the fans are going to want to be. So I'm just telling you guys that you shouldn't be thinking that that the Chiefs are going to draft a wide receiver in round 1. I don't think that's a very high possibility of happening.
Yeah, no, I'm right with you. Right, we're both fans of teams that do not invest in wide receiver early, and it's proven to work for a lot of our lives. So
yeah, and so I think that is going to be that. Mr. Jordan Morgan here, and that's going to wrap up our first round here of the draft.
yeah, I agree.
Alrighty, so just a quick recap here of our draft. What stood out to me the most actually was the fact that we, have talked up how deep this draft class is at offensive linemen and tackles, but there was a huge section where they slid all of a sudden, and it wasn't until later in the first round they started picking up again. So I don't know how accurate that's going to be, if they're really going to slide that much. But other than that, I think that this is a pretty solid draft.
Yeah, and I think that what helps that slide not happen is trades, right? Teams will go up to get these. I think another thing, like you kind of mentioned, is wide receivers, right? There's a lot of wide receivers that either barely got drafted, like AD Mitchell, or didn't get drafted, like Brian Thomas Jr., which I'd be surprised if aren't in the first round, right? So I think teams will jump up there, right? I don't know if we'll have that defensive stretch that we did in this draft, but I think we've kind of nailed some of the needs for teams, right? I think Cooper DeJean falling was kind of surprising to me, especially as much as I was talking him out, but I could just never find a spot to put him in there that made sense. So yeah, I think last time we did it in our mock draft 2, we had Jazir Newton go completely undrafted in the first round. Now he's jumped up to, what do we have him, pick 21, which I'd be surprised if that's where he is. I think he is a first round talent, right? Some of these defensive ends that we didn't really have in, our next defensive end was Darius Robinson, which we were talking about during our podcast this week. So, I would be, just an interesting, the way the mock draft fell this time.
Yeah. And just a reminder, this isn't what necessarily we would do if we were these teams, but this is what we think that they are going to do. So this is our official final 2024 mock draft prediction. So we'll check back obviously next week to see how we did. Let us know in the comments your thoughts. Do we pick right? What are your predictions for your teams? Where did we go wrong? What did we miss? And make sure you catch the draft. Make sure you catch the draft and see how it all goes down. And we'll catch you back time, next week as we kind of review how he did it. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching. This was All Things Football.